My husband kicked me out pregnant, accusing me of cheating because his mother forged his medical results when the paternity test proved the truth. I destroyed his family, and now they're all begging for forgiveness. But it's too late. I'm 27 years old. I work in digital marketing, and 6 months ago, I gave birth to the most beautiful baby in the world, in the middle of what is probably the most dramatic and messed up divorce you can imagine. The thing is, when I got pregnant, my husband accused me of cheating, kicked me out of the house in the middle of the night with a suitcase and my 4-month belly, and all because his mother, that manipulative witch, falsified some fertility results to make him believe he was sterile. And the worst part, what really breaks my heart to this day, is that he believed her without even doubting me, without giving me the benefit of the doubt. Nothing. But well, I guess I should start from the beginning, because this story is long and has many layers of crap. I met Kevin when we were 23. We worked at the same tech company, and honestly, I fell head over heels for him. He was funny, smart, ambitious, and we had this incredible chemistry from day one. We got married 2 years later in a small but nice wedding, and I honestly thought I had found my person. You know, the one you were going to grow old with and all that stuff. The first few months were perfect, like an eternal honeymoon, but then we started trying to have a baby, and that's when everything started to get complicated. We had been trying for like a year and a half, month after month seeing those negative pregnancy tests, and the frustration was brutal. Kevin was getting more and more anxious. I cried every time I got my period, and the pressure was killing us. His mother, Geraldine, didn't help at all, because every time she saw us, she asked when we were going to give her grandchildren, as if it were that easy, as if we could just snap our fingers and that's it. The relationship with Geraldine was always complicated, to put it mildly. But from the time we started dating, she made it very clear that I wasn't good enough for her precious son. I come from a normal family, middle class. My mom, Sharon, raised my 2 siblings, and me alone after my dad abandoned us when I was like 8 years old. My mom worked 3 jobs to support us. And yeah, maybe in her youth she partied a bit, went out a lot, and had several boyfriends before settling down. But that doesn't make her a bad person. Geraldine always looked down on her, made comments about her past, about how she raised us, about everything, basically. Once at a family dinner, she said, and I swear she said it with that fake little smile she had, that she hoped I hadn't inherited my mother's habits. Kevin defended her a little that time, told her not to be like that, but it's not like he really confronted her. You know what I mean? The infertility issue was slowly killing us. We went to several doctors. They did a ton of tests on us. Everything came out normal, apparently, but nothing was happening. Kevin was obsessed with finding a solution. He searched for information on the internet until 3 in the morning, read about special diets, supplements, positions for conceiving, everything. I just wanted him to breathe a little, to let things flow. But he was determined. And then his uncle Douglas, Geraldine's brother, who had a pretty prestigious fertility clinic in the city, offered to help us. He said he would do all the tests for us at a discount, that he would look for exactly what was going on. At that moment, I thought it was a generous gesture, that the family was supporting each other. How stupid I was, seriously. We went to Douglas's clinic like 3 times in 2 months. They drew my blood, did ultrasounds on me. They also did tests on Kevin. The whole process was super professional, or so it seemed, and Douglas was always very kind to me, very reassuring. He told us that sometimes these things take time, not to worry, to keep trying. And we believed him because he was a doctor, because he was family, because why wouldn't we believe him? We kept trying for several more months after that, and just when we were considering more serious options like artificial insemination, the miracle happened. I took a pregnancy test at home on a Tuesday morning, almost out of routine by then, without real hope, and 2 lines appeared. 2 clear, unmistakable lines. I stood there staring at that test for like 10 minutes, unable to believe it, crying in the bathroom, literally shaking. I told Kevin that same night when he got home from work. I had bought like 5 more tests during the day and they all came out positive, so I was already sure. I put all the tests in a gift box and gave it to him when we were having dinner. When he opened it and saw what it was, his face was indescribable. He cried. I cried. We hugged and jumped all around the living room like teenagers. It was the happiest moment of my life up to that point, no exaggeration. Kevin immediately called his family to tell them. He even organized a special dinner with everyone to celebrate the following weekend. My mom was also super excited. It was going to be her first granddaughter or grandson, and she hugged me so tight she almost knocked the air out of me. Everything seemed perfect, like things were finally going well after so much suffering. But then, something changed. Something broke in a way I didn't understand at the time. Like a week after announcing the pregnancy, Kevin started acting weird. Distant, cold. He looked at me in a strange way I had never seen. At first I thought maybe he was stressed with work, or that he was processing the pregnancy news in some weird way, because sometimes men react like that supposedly. He stopped kissing me in the mornings, stopped asking me how I felt with the pregnancy nausea. He went to sleep before me and got up earlier to basically avoid me. When I tried to talk to him, he told me everything was fine, that he was just tired, but I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in my stomach. Beyond the pregnancy, that feeling that something terrible was about to happen. And then one night, like 2 weeks after announcing the pregnancy, he came home with a face I had never seen. He went straight to the living room where I was watching TV. His eyes were red like he had been crying or like he hadn't slept in days, and he told me we needed to talk. I sat up straight immediately because his tone was terrifying, serious in a way that chilled my blood. Kevin stood in front of me, literally shaking, and asked me who I had cheated on him with. Just like that. No preamble, no context. I asked him what the hell he was talking about. I thought maybe he was having some kind of nervous breakdown, but he took some papers out of his pocket and threw them on the coffee table. They were medical results. From his Uncle Douglas's lab. Kevin told me, with a voice that sounded broken and full of hate at the same time, that those results showed he was infertile. That according to the tests they had done on him months ago, his sperm count was practically zero, that it was physically impossible for him to have gotten me pregnant. I sat there unable to process what I was hearing. I told him that was impossible, that obviously there was an error with those tests, that the baby was his because I had never, ever, been with anyone else. But he wasn't listening to me. He was like possessed, screaming that I had cheated on him, that all this time I had been a liar, that I had probably been cheating on him for months or years. I tried to get close to him, touch him, make him see reason. But he pushed me away so hard I almost fell. He told me to leave his house, that I had 1 hour to pack my things and get out. 1 hour. I was 4 months pregnant with his child, because it was his child despite what those papers said, and he was throwing me out like I was trash. I begged him, I cried, I pleaded with him to listen to me, to think clearly, that those results had to be wrong because I had never betrayed him. But it was no use. He had already made his decision. He had already condemned me, in his head. I went up to our bedroom shaking, with my heart beating so hard I felt like it was going to explode, and I started putting clothes in a suitcase without even seeing what I was grabbing. All of me was on autopilot. My brain couldn't process the magnitude of what was happening. Kevin stayed downstairs while I packed. I heard him moving from side to side, probably also processing everything, probably also destroyed in his own way but too blinded by the supposed betrayal to stop and think. I came down with my suitcase like 40 minutes later. My face was swollen from crying so much, and he didn't even look at me. He opened the front door and stood there waiting for me to leave. I told him one last time that the baby was his, that I loved him, that I didn't understand what was happening, but that we could solve it together. He told me he never wanted to see me again, that his lawyer would contact me to start the divorce proceedings. I left that house, our home, with the suitcase in one hand and my bag in the other, pregnant and completely destroyed. I drove to my mom's house crying so hard it's a miracle I didn't have an accident. It was like 11 at night when I arrived. I knocked on the door, and when my mom opened it and saw me standing there with my stuff, she immediately knew something horrible had happened. She hugged me, and I completely collapsed. I told her everything between sobs that barely let her understand what I was saying. My mom was furious. She wanted to go confront Kevin immediately, but I stopped her because I knew it wouldn't do any good. She made me tea, took me to my old room that still had some of my teenage stuff, and stayed with me until I fell asleep from pure emotional exhaustion. The next few days were a fog of crying, confusion, and a sadness so deep I thought I was going to drown in it. On the third day of being at my mom's house, I hired a lawyer. If Kevin wanted a divorce, if he really believed I had cheated on him, without even giving me the chance to prove my innocence, then I wasn't going to sit around waiting. I told my lawyer the whole story, showed her the papers Kevin had thrown at me, explained that everything was impossible because I had never been with anyone else. She suggested we do a paternity test as soon as the baby was born. That would solve everything. But at that moment, I just wanted to move forward, protect my daughter or son who was on the way, and start healing somehow. We filed the divorce papers that same week and sent the notification to Kevin. There was no response from him for days, which surprised me because I thought he would be anxious to divorce me as quickly as possible. But then, like 2 weeks after kicking me out of the house, Kevin called me. There were like 20 missed calls in an hour, desperate messages saying he needed to talk to me urgently, that he had discovered something, that please call him. I didn't want to know anything about him. Every time I saw his name on my phone, I felt a mixture of rage and pain so intense I could barely breathe. But my mom convinced me to at least hear what he had to say, even if just to have peace of mind. I called him from my mom's phone because I had blocked his, and when he answered, he sounded completely different, like broken, desperate, in a way I had never heard. Kevin told me that his mother and his uncle Douglas had falsified the fertility results, that he had discovered everything by accident when he went to Douglas's clinic to ask for copies of other tests, and a confused nurse asked him why he needed more copies of results that had been normal. Normal. He demanded to see the real results, the clinic originals, and there it was, everything. His fertility was completely normal. It always had been. There was no problem. Douglas had created fake results, supposedly at Geraldine's request, to make him believe he was infertile, so that when I got pregnant, he would automatically think I had cheated on. To him, it was such a twisted plan, so elaborate and evil, that at first I couldn't even process it. Who does something like that? What kind of mother destroys her son's marriage that way? Kevin was crying on the phone, begging me to forgive him, saying he had been an idiot, that he should have believed me, that he wanted us to be together again. And me, I just felt this cold and deep rage. I asked him how he dared to call me after what he had done to me. After kicking me out pregnant onto the street, after accusing me of the worst without even giving me the benefit of the doubt. I told him that his mother had achieved exactly what she wanted, to destroy our marriage, and that he had been the perfect instrument because he had chosen her over me without blinking. Kevin kept apologizing, saying he was going to cut all contact with his mother, that he was going to sue Douglas, that he would do whatever it took to fix it. But I was already fed up, tired, exhausted with everything. I told him to go ahead with the divorce, that I wasn't going back to him, that what he had done was unforgivable. He begged me to at least see each other in person, to talk face to face, but I wasn't ready. I don't know if I was ever going to be ready. I hung up the phone and sat there on my mom's couch, with my almost 6-month belly, feeling my baby move inside me, and I wondered how we had gotten to this point. We had been so happy at the beginning, we had had plans, dreams, and now everything was destroyed by the manipulation of a woman who supposedly loved me as part of her family. My mom hugged me and let me cry again, because it seemed like crying was the only thing I could do lately. The next few months were strange. The divorce was moving forward smoothly, because Kevin wasn't fighting anything. He signed everything his lawyer put in front of him, accepted any terms. His lawyer contacted mine to discuss the issue of custody of the baby when it was born, and that's when things got a little tense. I didn't want Kevin to have shared custody immediately. I wanted time to adjust to being a single mother, to heal, to establish a routine with the baby before starting to share them. But his lawyer insisted that Kevin had rights as a father, that he wanted to be present from day one. We reached a temporary agreement where Kevin could visit the baby at my house for the first few weeks, and then we would evaluate the situation. When I was in my 8th month, Kevin asked to see me to talk in person. We had already had a couple of phone conversations about practical issues, like the baby's health insurance and who would be present at the birth, but nothing emotional, nothing personal. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my mom's house. Neutral, public, safe. When I arrived, he was already there. He looked terrible, honestly, like he hadn't slept well in months. He had lost weight and had this sad look that almost made me feel bad for him. Almost. We sat down and there was this uncomfortable silence at first. Neither of us knew how to start. Kevin told me he had cut all contact with his mother, that he hadn't seen or spoken to her since he discovered what she had done, that she had tried to justify herself saying she did it because she thought I was a bad influence, because she thought I was like my mother and that I was going to ruin his life. He told me that his uncle Douglas had lost his medical license, that he was being investigated by the medical board for falsifying results, that he would probably face legal charges. He told me all this as if it were good news. as if their punishment somehow fixed what he had done to me. I asked him directly why he had believed me so quickly. Why his first reaction when he saw those results was to think I had betrayed him instead of questioning the validity of the papers. He was quiet for a long time, and then admitted that his mother had been planting doubts about me for months. He explained that I'd been telling him that I was coming home suspiciously late from work, that I was probably seeing someone else, that women like me, from families like mine, didn't value marriage the same way. She had been systematically poisoning him against me, preparing the ground for when the time came to show him the fake results. And Kevin, instead of defending me, instead of trusting me, had let those seeds of doubt grow. I told him that was even worse, that he had doubted me even before seeing those papers, that our relationship obviously hadn't been as solid as I thought if it was so easy to convince him of my supposed infidelity. He had no answer for that, just more apologies that sounded empty by that point. Then he begged me again to consider giving our marriage another chance. He told me he had been going to therapy, that he was working on his trust issues, on his relationship with his mother, on everything. That he loved me, that he loved our baby who was on the way, that he wanted to be and me, looking at this man who had been my husband. The love of my life at some point felt absolutely nothing. Not love, not hate, just this emptiness and this resignation that what we had was dead, that his mother had killed it and he had held the weapon. I told him no, that the divorce was going to continue, that we could be good co-parents for the sake of our daughter or son, but that we were never going to be together romantically again. I saw his heart break when I said that, but honestly at that moment I didn't care. I also took advantage of that meeting to make some ground rules clear. I told him that neither his mother nor his uncle Douglas were going to have contact with my baby, never, under any circumstances. That if he wanted to be in our son or daughter's life, that was non-negotiable. Kevin agreed immediately, said he didn't want them near the baby either, that what they had done was unforgivable. We also talked about how we would handle visits, schedules, the practical logistics of sharing a child when we were no longer together. It was a sad but necessary conversation, like adult and civilized despite all the pain and history between us. Before we left, Kevin apologized to me again, told me he was going to dedicate the rest of his life to somehow making it up to me, to being the best possible father. I just nodded and left. The day I went into labor, I called Kevin, as we had agreed. It was like 3 a.m. I was at my mom's house when my water broke, and the contractions started getting serious. My mom took me to the hospital and I sent Kevin a message from the car. He arrived at the hospital like half an hour after us. He looked terrified and excited at the same time. My labor lasted like 14 hours. They were the longest and most painful hours of my life, and Kevin was there the whole time. He stayed in the waiting room most of the time, because I had decided I only wanted my mom with me during the birth, but the doctors called him when I was about to give birth because technically he was still my husband, and had the right to be present if I allowed it. When my baby was finally born, when the doctor put her in my arms and I saw her wrinkled and perfect little face, all the pain and suffering of the last few months evaporated for a moment. It was a girl, Harper, and she was absolutely perfect. Kevin was crying, I was crying, my mom was crying, we were all an emotional mess. Kevin asked me if he could hold her, and I said yes. And seeing him hold our daughter with so much tenderness and admiration made me feel something I hadn't felt for him in a long time. Not romantic love, but something like understanding that despite everything, he loved this baby as much as I did. My mom took pictures of the 3 of us, of Harper, of the moment, and although technically we were already divorced at that point because the process had been finalized like 2 weeks before the birth, for a moment I felt like we were a family. The first few days after we left the hospital were chaotic. Harper didn't sleep more than 2 hours straight. She cried a lot. I was exhausted and sore, and the idea of doing all this alone terrified me. Kevin came every day to my mom's house to see Harper and help with whatever he could. At first it was weird having him there, like uncomfortable and tense, but gradually we got used to this new dynamic. He changed diapers, gave her the bottle when I needed to rest, stayed up with her when she cried in the early morning hours. One night, like a week after leaving the hospital, Kevin fell asleep on the living room couch with Harper on his chest, and my mom saw them and told me that maybe eventually we could find a way to make this work. Kevin basically stayed living with us for Harper's first 3 weeks of life. He slept on the couch, got up at night to help me, ran errands, bought whatever was needed. He also took the opportunity to formally apologize to my mom. He sat with Her one afternoon while Harper was sleeping and asked her forgiveness for all the horrible things he had thought and said about her, for believing his own mother that my mom was a bad influence, for not defending her when Geraldine made derogatory comments. My mom, who is an incredibly strong but also very generous woman, told him she forgave him, that the only thing that mattered now was Harper, and that we all needed to work together to give her the best possible life. 2 weeks ago, the three of us were in the living room at my mom's house. Harper was in her bassinet, sleeping peacefully, and Kevin and I were watching TV in a comfortable silence. Suddenly, he said he wanted to apologize to me officially again, that he knew he had already done it a million times, but that he needed me to know that he understood the magnitude of what he had done. He told me he had destroyed our family by trusting the wrong person, by not fighting for me when he should have, by allowing his mother to manipulate his perception of me for so long. He told me that if he could go back and change everything, he would, but that he understood the damage was done and that I had moved on. I told him I forgave him. Not because what he did was okay or because I wanted to get back together with him, but because carrying that anger wasn't doing me or Harper any good. Right now, we're in this weird space where we're not a couple, but we're family somehow. Kevin wants to move to an apartment near my mom's house to be close to Harper, and I'm okay with that. We've established a visitation and custody schedule that works for both of us, and honestly, it's working better than I expected. There are still difficult moments, like when Kevin mentions something from the past, when we were happy together, and I feel that sharp pain of remembering what we had and lost. Or when I see other families together and think about how things could have been different if Geraldine hadn't been so toxic and manipulative, and if Kevin had been stronger to defend us. Harper is 1 month old now, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I watch her sleep and wonder how something so small can contain so much love, so much hope. Kevin is a good father. I have to admit it. He takes his role very seriously and is committed to being present in our daughter's life. I don't know what's going to happen with us long term. If we'll eventually find new partners and have to navigate that awkward situation, or if we'll just continue like this, as friendly co-parents who share a daughter. What I do know is that I'm never going to forget what happened. How I felt that night when he kicked me out of the house. The betrayal and pain of him not believing me. Those wounds are going to leave permanent scars. But the last time I heard anything about Geraldine was when my lawyer informed me that she had tried to file a lawsuit to obtain visitation rights with Harper. Obviously, they rejected it because grandparents don't have automatic rights and because there's documentation of what she did. Kevin told me she calls him constantly, leaving him messages crying and begging him to forgive her, to reconsider cutting her completely out of his life. But he stands firm, says what she did is unforgivable, and that Harper is never going to know her. Part of me feels bad for her because it's her granddaughter and she's never going to see her. But most of me thinks she deserves it. That actions have consequences and she chose to destroy a family because of her stupid prejudices. Yesterday, Kevin was here giving Harper her bottle, and she was looking at him with those big dark eyes she has. And he was telling her about all the plans he has for when she grows up, the places he wants to take her, the things he wants to teach her. And I was watching them from across the room, this small broken family, but functioning somehow, and I felt peace for the first time in a long time. It's not the happy ending I imagined. When I married Kevin 4 years ago, it's definitely not the life we planned together. But it's what we have, and we're making it work the best we can. Harper deserves to have both her parents in her life. She deserves love and stability. And if that means swallowing our pride and our pain to co-parent effectively, then that's what we'll do. At least that's what I tell myself on the good days. On the bad days, I still cry for what we lost and for how we ended up here.